Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to our final guest faculty lecture for this summer. And wow, we're going out with a bang because we have two amazing artists, local artists of note, who are going to be speaking tonight. So welcome. Before we begin, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. I want to start by recognizing that Anderson Ranch campus resides on the historic tribal lands of the Ute people who called this area home for over 800 years. In honor of this legacy, we focus on building an inclusive community, maintaining this as a place for inspiration and creativity in the center of the Rocky Mountains. Tonight's program will consist of 2 faculty lectures followed by a brief Q&A. First, I would like to introduce Sam Harvey. Sam is a ceramic, yeah, right? Give it up for Sam. Okay, Sam is a ceramic artist in Aspen. Sam received his MFA from New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University in 2001. His work is included in many public and private collections, including the American Museum of Ceramic Art in California and the Brooklyn Museum of Art. He is the owner and director of Harvey Preston Gallery. Perhaps you have been there. If not, you should go. He received the prestigious 2019 USA Fellowship Award, which recognizes the most compelling artists working and living in the United States. Please help me welcome Sam to the stage.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. And of course, I want to thank the directors, staff, everyone who helps to make this place run as great as it does. I feel every time I step onto this campus, I feel incredibly lucky. And I guess the important thing about that is that I started coming here in the early 90s. And it's nice to see, it's always great to see that the legacies that were established before you even showed up are continuing to do the work that they do. Because this really is quite an important venue for the education of art and creativity and community and all of the buzzwords. So what we're looking at is a wall tile. And you'll see through my images that I tend to work in a variety of ways. I make ceramic sculpture, I do drawings. A bunch of years ago, I started compiling, I don't even know what to call them, but they're these piles of paint. So I'm using paint as a physical material. So there are lots of layers of color, and they're about 12 inches high. So I literally sometimes watch paint dry. All right, so this is a wall tile. Here's another one. And people who are in my workshop will kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about in terms of bouncing surfaces against one another. So the surface in the middle is dryish, and it's kind of buttressed by these wetter surfaces. So I like to think of creating surfaces that I don't tend to like looking at ceramic objects that are kind of wrapped in cellophane so that everything has this all-over effect. And for my own thinking and how I think about the avenue of art, I like to question materiality, form, shape, color, light, and those things because it kind of gets my thinking excited. Like, I need to be engaged in the thinking and seeing process to activate the questions that I have about being a maker. So this is, I would consider this a three-dimensional wall tile, and the cone is glued to the surface of the tile. And again, I like, playing visual games like shifting the color just below the cone so that there's kind of an arc, but the color breaks from blue to green at that arc. So I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, which influences a lot how I think about color and everything, really. I mean, the great thing about that town is that it's old. It's very old, and it has layers of historical influences from the French, the Spanish, Cajun culture, African American culture, Native culture. It all blends in this space that has a certain kind of vibrancy. So this is the kind of stuff. So these images are mainly from the French Quarter, which is one of the older parts of town. And I remember when I was a kid, we would go down to the French Quarter to do our shopping. And you would pass these old buildings. And I just really love the color and the saturation of color and kind of the visual stimulus of looking at all of this information. Because when you look at the building like on the upper left, you're looking at kind of history changing, deteriorating, and it implies a lot of information just by looking at the thing you're looking at. I've always loved walking past graveyards because, again, you get the sense of history and time passing, because we don't all get to stay forever. So sooner or later, this happens to all of us. And so these mausoleums are kind of like, well, they're essentially houses of the dead, right? So, and they're in New Orleans or in the South in general, they're various states of decay and aging. And I just love, once again, I just love looking at the light and shadow and thinking about time passing. I mean, this thing is chock full of information for me. As well as that building. I love the wrought iron. This is one of my favorite buildings in the downtown area. So out of that, kind of thinking about the environment in which you grew or became the person that you are, it filters, for me, it filters into the objects that I make. So I make a lot of things that are house-like, or for me, the vessel is synonymous with building and home and place. And these are all coil built, which is this, for me, it's a process of building. For me, I leave the coils exposed because in a way it is recording the passage of time as the object is becoming. Alleghany has this one, and it's one of my absolute favorite ones. It's about 8 inches by 10 inches, and it's a lidded jar. Another one. So for quite a long time, I don't remember even how long ago, but for a number of years, the Anderson Ranch did field trips, or not field trips, but they were kind of cultural trips to other places, such as Nepal and Jamaica. And these workshops were conducted and led by Doug K-Spear. And so I went to Nepal, and actually I went for about 4 years after my initial trip there, and it was just such a remarkable environment to think in terms of rhythm and pattern and beauty, the beauty of aging. I mean, Nepal is centuries old. And I just love the rhythm of, for instance, this woman's clothing and the sway of the fabric and the overlap. And then the rhythm of all the ceramic objects on that wall. This is from northern Italy. Once again, it's how pattern and shadow affects what you're looking at. This place is outrageous. It's like, it's this building that's covered in ceramic shards. So, this work is actually from my graduate thesis show. So I just started building. And like, when I start building, I kind of have a sense of where I'm going, but not exactly, because I don't really want to know exactly what I'm going to do, because I'm into the journey of getting there. So it's much more exciting for me to figure it out as I'm going along than to know exactly where I'm going. Again, kind of chopping up the form in different ways. I love that little guy too. Again, kind of looking at all the things that influence me, and again, mostly it's architecture, and thinking of volumes and planes. This is another wall piece. And for me, it's really fun to kind of play with color and pattern. This is the inside of my brain. It is a cluster of all the things. My fantasy would be to have like a 3,000 square foot space of bunches of tables and walls and like a bucket of oatmeal. And I never leave. Maybe some grapes and apples, but I never leave. And I just work on clay things and paper things and yeah. This is door screen, which is funny because Elizabeth Farrow, who runs the painting department, also has been working in door screens. But these are door screens that are cut up and layered so that you create a shape within the mesh of the screen. See that brown and white thing there in the middle? It's got that kind of house shape. That's like the back. You know when you get your clothes off of the dry cleaners, or that paper? I love that paper. So it's this beautiful kind of onion skin paper, and so I'm inspired really by materiality. And for me, the worst thing in the world is those store-bought canvases. I have to tart that up before I can even touch it. Lots of drawings. I love to draw and just get home and see what happens. Mark making. This is, so I've done almost everything you could possibly do here. Like, I take classes here, obviously I teach here. I was on the board for 6 years. I was an intern for 9 years. yeah, I've done pretty much everything you could do here, except direct. But, so anyways, this is a painting class I took with Liz Farrell in the painting building. And so I was making these paintings on aluminum foil, but the foil was coming apart. So I started taping the back of the foil, and I fell in love with both sides, like using the duct tape as a medium for creating planes of color, but also, so the flip side of that drawing shape is duct tape. So I made these duct tape drawing things that are oval. I also did some prints in the print studio with Liz. There's the layered window screen. So this is how I like to look at the work that I make. So this is a show, I think it was in Carbondale. And so again, I like to think of the forms as containers and or buildings. And I put these wedges under them to tilt them a little bit so that they're slightly off balance. Although they don't need them, but I want that tension to feel like it's gonna crash to the floor. I love making these things and playing with visual games like that dark gray corner and then lifting it up again, but then occluding it with that thick glaze. Oh, this is, so Alleghany and I have quite the history with one another, and I'm just, once again, quite grateful for that amazing friendship. We were both interns here in 95, 96, somewhere in there. Okay. So then, and we traveled to Nepal a couple times, and Jamaica, and stuff like that. And then we opened, Alleghany was selling pots at the Saturday market in Aspen. And I started helping him out, and I don't know what happened then. He'll tell you he's better at this stuff than me because I forget everything. But anyways, at some point, years later, we opened a gallery together, and it was in 2005. And it was called the Harvey Meadows Gallery. And we just showed a really great work. And I was just so happy. And we did that for 16 years, 17 years. And then at a certain point, Alleghany was done, because he lives in Carbondale, and the gallery's in Aspen. And at a certain point, it was time to make a change. So we separated as partners in the gallery business, but I kept the gallery and I changed the name from Harvey Meadows to Harvey Preston. So it's still going. I don't know why it's still going, but it's still going. It's like, it's still going because I really, really love it, right? I really love turning people on to ceramics and to art in general. But I also have my own studio practice, so I'm kind of like pulled between these two things I love really well. I mean, a lot. So we showed just really great work, and I'm really proud of that aspect of what we were able to do together. This forward piece is a piece by an artist by the name of Martha Russo, and it's, as you can see, it's a lot of ceramic objects, but the core of it is this big stark piece of foam, and each object is on a long stem that sticks into the foam. The piece behind in that vitrine is a greenware porcelain house by K. Cesark, and it was disintegrating during the duration of the show. So it was unfired, and it was allowed to just kind of like come apart. And then there's a video piece that was in that show as well. The great thing about galleries, or the way I like to think about how we did the gallery, it was like, a lot of it was education, educating your audience, and also being stimulated ourselves by what we were kind of privileged to show and find homes for. I also love selling artwork to people, getting beautiful objects and paintings, drawings, sculpture into people's lives, because I strongly feel like you can never have too much beauty in your life. And I think that's it. Thanks, guys. Oh, golly.
Thank you, Sam. That was amazing. So now I would like to introduce Alleghany Meadows. Alleghany is a potter in Carbondale, Colorado. He earned his MFA from Alfred, studied in Japan with Takashi Nakazato, received a Watson Fellowship for study for potters in Nepal, and was an artist in residence at Anderson Ranch. He teaches nationally and internationally, and his work is in numerous public and private collections. Please help me welcome Alleghany to the stage.
Wow. Yay. To reiterate what Sam said, it's incredibly grateful to everybody here. Thanks for signing up for my workshop and for having me to teach. It's an honor to be here, and so much of my adult life has been associated with the ranch. It's really pretty amazing. I'm going to dive into some sort of biographical images and speak about my work. I first started pottery, met clay when I was a freshman in high school. Let's see. I was given permission last year to do this I was teaching at Haystack, and an amazing artist spoke the night before I gave my lecture. And she talked about some very phenomenal life experiences, and I had never really shared those about myself. So when I met pottery, I was homeless on the streets of Santa Cruz. And the ceramic community at Harbor High School there were some people in there who could just like make stuff out of this clay is supposed to be responsive and easy to work with in a certain way, but I couldn't get it to do anything I wanted. And watching them and having them at night like help me learn how to center and throw was kind of saved my life. So pottery and fire, working with these elements, these challenging materials, keeps me engaged. 35 years later, I am still trying to figure out how to work with this material. It led me to my undergraduate in Claremont, California, where I studied with Paul Soldner for 2 years, and then I went to Japan to study abroad and was able to work with Takashi Nakazato as a student. I was a momentary apprentice. The apprenticeship there was 3 to 5 years, and I was only there for just under a year. But I fell in love with utilitarian work and realized this is Takashi on the left, actually here at the ranch. He came for many decades. But every dish that was in Takashi's house was made by himself at that time. And the way the food interacted with the pottery and the pottery interacted with the food, that dialogue back and forth, greatly affected me. And I realized that I wanted my work to be able to be used in that physical sense. And since that time, my pieces have always been intended to and able to function. So returning for my senior year in undergrad, as my thesis show, I replaced all the dishes in a cafe that was on campus, trying to understand how to get my work out into the world and how to relate through utility. And in the case of a restaurant where someone comes to eat there, if they're served on your dishes, they actually have to, if they want to eat, they have to interact with your artwork, right? It's not in a museum or in a gallery where someone is going to make a choice to go in the door or not go in the door. So it started to really influence the way that I think about work. As a final meal, I invited 30 family and faculty and friends to a final dinner, and a few of us cooked all the food. As part of the experience for coming, I requested that everybody bring a story, a song, or a poem to share with the group. And go back. I didn't tell them in advance, but they received all of their dishes as a gift. And years later, moving across the country, I unpacked this plate. This is sort of, oh wait, there's a pointer. That's me. And so I unpacked this little plate from a box, and as I pulled it out, I suddenly remembered this gentleman, Carl Hertel, standing up and absolutely filling this room with an Irish folk song with the boy. It was such an incredible thing. And so this is years later. Carl has passed away at that point, and I'm looking at this plate with this vivid memory, and I realized that the pots gain a patina of memories, and I believe it physically changes the pot. The perception and the way that we experience them, that the pots actually change, that they have a much longer life cycle than, say, a carrot. But through that changing, our experiences with them affect them. So I received a grant to go to Nepal and work for a year, and I was still searching for the unknown craftsman. I had gone to Japan in search, after reading D.T. Suzuki, and was sort of very much moved by Zen Buddhism and looking for the unknown craftsman, and Soetsu Yanagi, and all these great influences. But Takashi, when he unloaded a kiln, curators from the best museums in the world came to select work for their museum. And even though he didn't sign his name on the work, the idea of an unknown craftsman was more of a metaphor at that point. Whereas the potters in Nepal this area near India, they are truly unknown. They're itinerant farm workers. They farm other people's rice fields in the summer in exchange for some food, and then in the dry season, they're able to make work. And then they take these water jars, which the entire village makes the same form. Nobody signs their names. They don't try to stand out at all. The women decorate the work. For those in my class, the banding wheel is actually her toe. She's rotating that and using her finger, applying terra sigillata. And the potters trade the pots that are on sort of your, whatever it is, closer to me, for their equal volume of rice. So they also sell them, but that barter system really affected me. So when I was in Nepal, Anderson Ranch, like Sam mentioned, they were bringing their first workshop of American and sort of Western artists to come work for 2.5 weeks with local potters and materials. And I had learned about this and reached out to Doug Casebeer, I think it was like via fax at that point, to see if they needed any help, because I was living in the village where they were going to be coming to work. And so we arranged that I could help out the workshop and be, like, I guess, an intern. And through that experience, I learned more about Anderson Ranch and that there was a residency program here, and was able to, some people, I had left a portfolio with one of my teachers here, and he sent it in as an application. And I somehow came from Nepal back to Snowmass Village. This is the previous rendition of the sculpture and ceramic building. There was no sculpture and ceramic building as we see now, no downstairs. I needed to learn how to make pots because all of these cultural experiences for me really had the effect of helping me sort of learn about myself. And then I was back here working with some amazing other artists in residence like Julia Galloway and Michael Connolly and Jill Oberman. The four of us were the ceramic residents that first winter. And they had all gone to art school and were sort of deeply immersed in this making tradition of their own. And I was like, wow, who the hell am I? It was a great culture shock. So these are some explorations while I was here at the ranch, working with the materials and the soda kilns, things like that, and using lots of texture and slab building. And then graduate school was this amazing opportunity where the faculty really helped me sort of unpack this sort of suitcase of my own baggage and dive in and understand why I'm asking that question, and then dive into that question and go deeper and deeper and deeper. And it was a great time at Alfred because Linda Sikora had just started teaching, and the faculty were very much like, wow, you can make functional pottery. Whereas before that, they would really kick your ass. And they still did, but it wasn't like, is it valid to make functional pottery? Because it was suddenly valid. You weren't questioned about that. You just had to figure out how to make and express yourself as an artist through that certain aspect of the field. I show this slide because when you pluck a leaf of a succulent, and typically these live in a dry climate like Southern California, and the leaf itself has water in it. And I love the weight that it's not a deciduous tree leaf that blows around in the wind. There's this added weight. And that's probably the most elusive thing that I can try to chase in my own work is what is the proper weight of a cup? What does it mean for a cup, for me to pick it up and need to take it seriously because of its weight? Not poorly crafted because it's too heavy, not incredibly thin and lightweight where I'm afraid to use it because I think I'm going to break it. I love to work in series. My students have heard a lot about my mistress, so I had to put an image in. This is my espresso machine, Sylvia. Every morning, the first thing I do is turn on the buttons. Anyway, they've heard way too many stories, but Sylvia is this great scale of what size cup can fit under to make the espresso, but also the volume for the cappuccino that I want. So I sort of always have this context when I've been traveling or when I come back in to a studio making rhythm, and I'll make cups for Sylvia. And if I'm in a stage where I'm only drinking a tiny bit of milk, then I'll sort of scale down. Or if I want a large latte, like sort of French style, I can make these big latte bowls, but they have to be short enough. So these are a variety of different cups over the years. I love art history. I love sort of standing on the shoulders of giants, of the teachers and of the potters for thousands of years. A teacher of mine in Alfred, Robert Turner, would sandblast his work and take layers off. And I thought about that for years, and then finally I was like, yeah, I got to try that. So I started taking, this pot was a shiny Celadon glaze, and I sandblasted the exterior to reveal this really beautiful matte that feels like it draws light into it, and it makes me want to reach in and touch it even more. After leaving the gallery, I got to go teach in Italy for a semester and use clay from an ancient lake bed that is just this phenomenal plastic terracotta clay, and slips and glazes in a very different tradition in an Etruscan town called Cortona, teaching for the University of Georgia. That is actually this cup, and the layers of meaning for me that come through this cup being made in Cortona and traveling around with me and being here, like the perception of this cup continuously changes, and I love that. I started journaling and using language as decoration. we were in a museum in Florence, and there were just these exquisite Persian pots where I don't read Arabic. So for me, the writing becomes visual decoration. And as my kids would tell you, I can't really read some of my own handwriting, so it became visual decoration. And I look forward to getting back to that. I look at nature a lot. These are photographs by Karl Blossfeld, and thinking about the tension and the opening of picture forms, how they can become flower-like. This is a painting by Bruegel. And if you look at your lower left-hand corner, there's a basket full of cups. It's called The Wedding Feast. That inspired some still lifes that are these large vessels full of cups, like a bowl of fruit. For an exhibition where the space was really small in this Airstream trailer that I'd turned into a gallery, I needed to figure out a way to make a set of bowls fit into a bigger bowl, and they just connected up. And I called up my partner, Jill, and I was like, holy crap, you're not going to believe what just happened today in the studio. That has started a series of work over 10 years where I'm figuring out geometries and where repeating patterns or repeating forms can create very different patterns and experiences, and yet they still come apart for use, and then they go back into a sculpture. These are some of the elements in my studio, and I'm figuring out how plates and bowls and cups fit into these. This is an exhibition at Sam's Gallery. So for quite a few years before going to Italy, this series is called the Flora series, and I would title them these like sort of exotic Italian names because I really loved the Italian language and how different words for fruit or for bowl and things. So I thought it was really pretty amazing that suddenly I ended up teaching in Tuscany. Often I photograph these from above, and I've had many people say, are they wall pieces? Which I love that is a way that you can, somebody could think about them. This is, recently I've spent a lot of time on rivers in the West and in the Southwest, in canyons. And so these are really about geology and different types of rock. This is a piece that's at Sam's Gallery now, and on the left, the bowls are slightly arranged a little bit more open, and then by gently pushing them together, they sort of close in to protect maybe that space that's underneath. So this is the same piece with a slightly different arrangement. And that's Wright's green back there. I've got some great students who have very good opinions about glazes. This piece is actually up in the studio, and I'll take it down to Sam's Gallery, but it's, I love that space around the bowls. I started working about 5 years ago with a chef. His name's Barclay Dodge, and that's what the workshop that I'm teaching now is with Barclay. He's come in. We're going to meet him tomorrow at a farm down the road. And he gave us a menu, and we are all making dishes for that specific menu. And on Thursday, assuming all the kilns come out, we get to have lunch on our dishes. No pressure there, guys. But I love making work. He's not the first chef, and I'm sure I'll work with other chefs. I love making work where it can go into this highly creative visual and sort of sensory experience, the context of a really good sort of foodie restaurant. So these are some bowls wet in the studio, and then after they're glazed and fired, things they get to experience in the restaurant. These are some of Barclay and his team, some of their different seasonal types of presentations. They forage things from the mountains and the forests around here many times of the year. He just posted this picture yesterday, and I was blown away because it looks like a glaze. It's a satin white bowl that I made him, and he's like, totally needs to be a potter. I mean, he's like decorating this like we would. Oh, he is working on it. He's trying, and there he is. So this was 2 years ago, I taught this same collaboration with Barclay as a workshop, and here are some of the students' work that he is serving up, plating up in the back room. And we'll get to experience this on Thursday. Let's see, still have a few minutes left. So I have fallen in love with rivers. This is the Grand Canyon, and in the last 4 years, I've been able to row a boat down it 3 times at different times of the year. Absolutely in love with geology and with layering. These are limestones and various slot canyon side hikes, and just like, I don't know, the word, having a muse. And I thought Sylvia was my muse, but nature and geology, and these are some pieces inspired by that, those times in the canyons. Sandblasting, these sort of dark Temuku-type glazes to make them sort of feel like they're worn by time and elements and geology. Just briefly, I want to touch on a few other projects, because for me, these other projects, they take and stimulate me in a very similar way that my creative work in the studio does. So the Art Stream Gallery engages the risk and the aesthetic decisions in a different way, as does working with clay in the studio. That was in New York City. So 23 years ago, I remodeled with this group on my side. Those are the 6 of us in the beginning. At the first show, we called ourselves the 6 Nomadic Potters, but I remodeled this into a exhibition space, and we towed it to the NCECA conference, which that year was in Kansas City. And our first customer was Betty Woodman, and she had been one of Sam's teachers, and she had seen the Airstream right in front of the hotel, all shining, and she came in and she was like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever." So we knew, we were like, okay, this might work. And we parked it in front of MoMA after the remodel in, I think it was 2005, putting pottery right on the street. There was a line around the block to get into MoMA, and people were coming into the gallery constantly and seeing pots. The Aspen Farmers Market, where I sold my work for 20 years and really made a living there, and we ended up renting a space right behind the Airstream for the Harvey Meadows Gallery, and there was a great relationship between the two. And this is all in there. A great friend presented us with an art stream that we could eat for our 10th anniversary, and we ate the art stream. It was chocolate. The pots in that were marzipan, so you actually could eat all the pottery too. And I think like 500 people had cake. We made, Mark Ferris is a potter who works with slabs, building forms, and so he helped design this poster you could cut out and build your own little Airstream. And these are us in a slightly younger world. Some of what Sam and I did is, I feel like we really contributed in a meaningful and beautiful way to the ceramic field and to building community. It was an amazing way to build community and conduits between makers and people who wanted to live with work and people who wanted to learn from the work. Many students from the Valley and students at Anderson Ranch would come to our gallery, and they would learn so much. This is Betty Woodman having a solo show and giving a gallery talk. The table in the center of our old gallery space could be used for dishes or sculpture. We wanted it to feel a little bit like a domestic space and also still like a very formal, minimalist type gallery. So we kind of bridged between those. Another quick project was a lending library of ceramic art, of cups, called the Artstream Ceramic Library. And it's headed to a permanent home, working with a museum that would like to keep it and use it and have it be in circulation. So it was a way for people to experience pots and not have to pay anything for that, taking out the economics of it. We came up with the idea during a brainstorm with some great mentors. I think it was in 2009 during NCECA, and we didn't know when the bottom of the economy was going to bottom out. And we're like, yeah, what about if we just don't try to charge money, but we put the work in the world? And in exchange for borrowing a cup, you needed to submit an image of the cup in use or a creative response. This is a geology librarian at University of Texas, Austin, and the image that he submitted. Fun with digital pottery. Old Faithful, Lisa Orr capturing or letting a rainbow go. And then just the last couple images. Building community is very important to me, and making a profit is important. And that conscious capitalism is something that really I want to continue and do continue working. I was able to piece together and buy a building in Carbondale that was a derelict warehouse and turned it into art studios. So this is Studio for Arts and Works, or SAW. And we've been around almost 20 years now. It was the same year that I started the gallery with Sam. And there are 25 art studios here. Remodeled it with shiny metal because that's my jam. And there's painting studios and ceramic studios, and there's a jeweler, printmaking. Yeah, how do we help make the world a better place? So the architect friend and I, who first started SAW together recently, we decided we really wanted to do another project, and we found a building in Fruita, Colorado, which is on the way to Utah. It's about 2 hours from here, and did a similar thing. And it was an old metal building, and we have 25 art studios there, and that's called Farm. So this is sort of the other aspect of life that adds the most incredible meaning and richness to it. And my partner Jill and I have 3 children, and she firmly believes in sort of free-range parenting and burying the kids in mud and all that great stuff. They might be watching live stream, which would be really great if they're listening to me, because they can't give me a hard time and talk back. But this is them at a younger age, and they're all just incredible. And this is last year, where in a blink of an eye they have grown. So thank you all. Lex, do you have questions for Sam?
All right. Okay, folks, we have a brief Q&A. We're going to set up a couple of chairs here for Alleghany and Sam. And if you have a question, raise your hand, and I will bring the mic. And please wait for me to bring the mic so we can hear your question. Are there questions? So I'm going to start with a question, because I was really captivated by Sam's discussion about the passage of time and how that coincides with texture. And so I wanted to ask you more about that. So is texture a function of the passage of time for you, and how does that, if so, how does that work?
Just look at the floor. Look at this floor. This building was put in, I don't even remember, but when Alleghany and I were interns, this building didn't exist. So the beginning and ending of the summer was, there was a platform, a plywood platform, and we put up a big tent. And that was the meeting hall. So I remember when this floor was brand new, and now I'm thinking about the passage of time, how many bodies and how many feet have walked across this floor onto the stage, and that's an accumulation of experience and life, right? And it's all around us. So to me, this is a beautiful thing to look at, and how does that filter into how I think about design, pattern, structure, architecture, etc.
Right on. Do you want to talk about the function of texture too? Well, we heard about geology.
Time. Yeah, time's pretty cool. What is it, Blake? What, time is but a stream I go a-fishing in? It's been a long time since I remembered this. Something about, sometimes I see the bottom and I detect how shallow it is. But yeah, time. I need to look that quote back up. That's probably been since high school. My mom used to walk around. She was a painter, and she used to walk around quoting Blake. And yeah, I love the passage of time. And a lot of my ceramic work, I can sort of pull in and layer into it, but often it is this archival type surface. But a lot of the pieces in the restaurant, Barclay revealed that when they chip, he's now fixing them with a gold marker, and then actually fixing them with gold mixed into epoxy, which is this amazing way to celebrate time and catalog time and use and keep them in use in the restaurant. And I also love some of the satin white glazes that I use. They craze little cracks in it, and tea stains or whatever they're serving in espresso in the restaurant will fill those in, and they'll show that sort of patina of use in more of a physical way.
Do you have questions?
Wow, we've answered them all. Woo, thank you guys.
Did you answer them all? Oh, here we have one.
Golly.
I know, I was like,
Sorry.
there's got to be something.
I was curious, Alleghany, about the cup that you had with you that has a distinct texture relative to your other work. Did you hand build that, or did you throw it on the wheel and add the texture in?
Great. So my first time in Italy, I had gone to the Villa Giulia museum in Rome and seen just the most amazing Etruscan pots, and I was like, wow, some of those were pinch pots. And I decided I actually wanted to learn how to make a pinch pot. And so I think I figured a couple of things out. And this was made from my most recent time last spring, and it was wheel thrown and then textured with those sort of geology type lines and then manipulated by hand and then sort of carved as well. So it's a hybrid of all of it. And I missed my friend Sam, and he coil builds, so I wanted to make things that kind of textured like his.
It does echo.
It kind of like
Yeah,
does a little bit of Sam, right? Right.
His texture, but I love the
Yeah.
juxtaposition too of the very elegant handle.
Yeah. Thank you. I taught a workshop just for 2 days, not that long ago, in Carbondale, where I live, and I had this cup with me, and I asked. There were 14. No, there weren't. I can't remember how many there were. There are 14 students now. There weren't that many. Maybe 8 is what they fit, or 10. And I sent the cup around, and I asked everybody to tell us what they thought of when they held and looked at that spot. And it was awesome because I had never done something like that before, and everyone had this totally different experience with what that triggered for them. Where's Andy, the trigger word? Maybe he left already. And then I explained all the different meanings that it had for me and the reason why I put it on there. And I love how different what we bring to a piece of art and what the makers are expressing is often so vastly different. And that's what makes it so rich.
I have one more question, if it's okay. I don't want to ask too many questions, but I'm fascinated. Because you two have been here and you have a relationship with the ranch for so long and you have a relationship with each other for so long, it's very intertwined. I found myself wondering.
Codependent.
It isn't? Okay. Well, then you just answered it. Thanks. Okay, no. I want to know, in what ways do you, are you helping each other with each other's work? Are you in dialogue? Because I know you show at Sam's Gallery. And so is there studio visits where you're often interacting and, I don't know, giving each other feedback? And how's that? How does that work? I'm just curious, because I feel like you can be honest with each other, so.
The great thing for me about this relationship is that there's an incredible amount of trust. Like when we ran the gallery together, we didn't always agree, and we don't always agree anyways. But there's there's a platform for trust that I know that there's a quality about the work, and even if we don't disagree on something, we can still be agreeable, right? So that the comfort of trust and friendship, and because we've done a bunch of stuff together. I mean, we've done so many things together. It's kind of crazy. It's like, and so. That's buttressed by my appreciation of his aesthetic, right? And I'm learning things when I'm looking at his work. I have pretty much every cup or object that he's an example from every era of his work, and he doesn't even know this. I have a ton.
Where that one went.
I have a ton of his stuff because, again, I appreciate the aesthetic, and we can work together, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. That's the big thing. It's like having ideas that you can spitball with someone whose aesthetic has a certain quality about it. Does that answer the question?
That does, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
He's never invited me to his studio,
Never.
which answers the question
Wow,
too.
true.
Actually, he's invited me a few times, but I usually can't go. But so the images that you saw of his studio are the same experiences that I've had because I don't go to his studio, which is great. Like that's his incubator spot, and I don't know why, but there he is. But when we were in the gallery, occasionally we would try to have exhibitions in the gallery or somewhere else, and we would show together, which was a lot of fun. I don't curate the art stream anymore, but I do still get to give him some deadlines. So we're trying to get the band back together for Insika this year for ArtStream, and he's got a deadline, and he's got to make a variety of forms, and then he gives me deadlines, and I mean, let's face it, like the world typically gets made by deadlines, right? So it's pretty great to have that relationship.
Well, the other thing is like I feel that people need to find community because outside of other artists, regular people really don't give a flying fart about what you make. And even your friends will go, "Oh my God, that's so nice. That's a nice thing. I love that." They're not going to tell you if it sucks. So you need to find people that you trust that can tell you when your stuff sucks so that you get better and stop doing the same trick all the time, right? So, yeah, it's important to have people who can tell you when your stuff stinks. So
Some of mine might stink. No, but it is. Yeah, I mean, you have to make work that stinks so you can make work that smells like flowers, I guess. Yeah, but we do still work together, and we do really enjoy that creative stimulation that we have. He comes to my studio a lot more. I don't know why.
All right, well, thank you so much for giving your talk in this last week. And everyone, enjoy your last week. Thank you for coming. Sam and Alleghany will be here through the week. So if you have come up with another question, you can ask them.
thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
Betsy.
thanks.